And we are live here in the York Gym. Duke's at home, 3 to go to tip here. AJ Switek, Gavin Hughes. Should have a good one on our hands. 2 500 squads. We're in store for a good one here.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as he said, welcome to Dick Campbell Gymnasium for Tuesday night basketball. Tonight's York Dukes take on the OPRF Huskies. Both teams sitting at 500. One at 1-1, that is the OPRF Huskies, and the other at 3-3, and that is your Dukes. So it's going to be an interesting game. There's a lot that's yet to be determined with a new coach, new season, different looking team, large team that is. AJ, what can we expect here tonight? I think the storyline in this one is that IHS, anyone who's watched IHS as a basketball knows, the Dukes have 3 wins, but this strength of schedule gets brought up a lot. The Dukes have 3 wins, but the 3 tougher teams they've played, it wasn't pretty. We saw them against Glenbard. That did not go in the green favor. And we've seen bigger names like Jeffrey Grace having a bit of a slower start to the year. So I think that's a key in this one. We're going to need to see players like Jeffrey Grace step up, get in his shoes. We saw him do great last year. We saw him great the year before. We know what he could do. If he could continue that kind of production, I think that the Dukes certainly have a great shot in this one. And I tell you what, it really does get interesting because I think this is a team that has yet to find their offensive identity, right? We talk about, getting out and shooting towards the outside or driving and dishing, and we had guys like Nick Hesh and Alex Sherman in the corner. But it's interesting because when, guys need to score who you expect to score, and we won't drop names, but you just can't, we're not allowed to trust those names to produce as of this point. So what can those guys do to change that?
Well, we've seen good production from guys like Nick Hesh. A big step up from the junior, big step up from his year last year. We saw some foul trouble early. But, I think something to watch is sophomore Alex Sherman. If Jeffrey Grace is lacking, if Denton Rohde isn't getting the shots that he's used to getting, this sophomore's been stepping up, and that's a big reason that the Dukes are even 500 right now, trying to fight for this new coach's job, showing that he was worthy of this hire.
And folks, if you watch the last one, it gets really interesting when it comes to foul troubles. That's been the main enemy of the Dukes. Just last week, we talked about it, around 20 fouls total. It's very intriguing, very interesting. You start talking about discipline. Where's the discipline? Is it going to be here? Is it going to be there? And it's just something that the Dukes have lacked up to this point. So it gets interesting with the OPRF Huskies. We have 3 juniors starting, a sophomore and a senior. That's sophomore number 11, Sam Lewis, the junior number 20, Justin Mullins, the junior number 33, Jacob Delaney, another junior number 42, John Vincent, and the one senior of this crew is number 34, Rashad Trice, who we talked a lot about last year, and we will be right back for the national anthem. And with that, we welcome you back to Campbell Gymnasium, York High School, and the starters being introduced now. And we talked about young production, right? We talked about guys like Alex Sherman. You talked about the big step that Nick Hesh has taken. Do you think that it's a little bit early to be relying on guys that are that young?
Dare I say that's almost helpful. We've seen these teams progress through their 4 years here in both of the suburban conferences, and it seems like the teams that are able to get that young talent on the squad early tend to be able to be more successful in the future. We've seen the Dukes do it year and year again with Shockey, with Grace, with Hesh, and now with Sherman, and it has continually worked. This is a formula for success, and dare I say, this OPRF Husky team almost seems to be emulating that same process with Sam Lewis, the sophomore, starting. Both teams, one underclassman on the starting squad, with a bunch of underclassmen. We've seen the Dukes take that approach 4 years in a row now, and it seems like the Huskies are playing a little bit of catch-up.
And it does get interesting because we talk about this OPRF team, what they have to offer. They put up 84 points in a game this year. I mean, that gives you just an idea of what they're capable of offensively. So, what's promised to be a good one always is York OPRF. The rivalry lives on. Looking forward to it, partner. The Dukes and the Huskies from York High School.
And here we go.
So we'll start throwing the ball inbounds. This is number 20. We mentioned the junior, Justin Mullins, brought up by the sophomore, Sam Lewis. And we'll get our first look of the Huskies offensively. Interesting little setup here. We talk about the difference between guys like Vince Doran and Coach Dunn. You think they have found their identity defensively?
Oh, man, I sure hope so, because if they want to stop these OPRF big men, they're going to need to find that defense early. Also, you hear a lot of noise. JV game that just concurred, there was no fans. The parents of the York Dukes letting the OPRF hear it here early as the Dukes get the ball with 7:30 to go in this first quarter.
That jump ball right there, possessed by Denton Rohde, will result in a Husky turnover, and we'll get our first look at the Duke offense as Nick Hesh.
That's exactly what they need to do.
That's what they got to do. Get inside. If you can't trust the outside ball, if your guys aren't feeling confident, get it inside to get things going.
Exactly.
And with that, the Dukes are the ones, just like Friday, are the ones that draw first blood. Interesting little setup here is Malaga on Trice. Trice throws one up, no good, but a rebound with the right hand off the mark. That was Justin Mullins, and here comes Grace and the Dukes back the other way.
You know, Grace has been doing he hasn't been the best shooter this year, but he's been great playmaking. You saw him get the ball in there earlier to Hesh. That's what they need to do, get everyone involved.
As Grace tries to tip, no good. Rebound there by number 42, John Vincent.
It was Rohde getting involved early. You see the Dukes, plenty of players getting the shots out. They've got to go in, and it's Grace going all the way.
3 on 0 the other way, and Grace straight up and in. Dukes lead 4-0, 6.5 to go in the opening quarter. I mean, we see energy. There's definitely no lack of energy from both of these sides.
And both teams trusting the sophomores early.
Great block there from Hesh.
Man, Hesh is a spark plug here early. Both ends of the floor, and he's feeling it as always.
Always is, and you can just trust him. He's just a guy you can trust. You know, if everyone else, isn't feeling their best, Nick Hesh is an energy spark game in and game out. Rohde now at the top of the key will give to Grace, and we'll see this York offense in motion.
You know, I like that analogy with Hesh, someone you could trust. Absolutely. I mean, we've seen multiple times this year he's came up in big moments. Of course, they didn't walk away with the win at LT. Hesh really sparked that comeback down double digits. They brought it all the way back, couldn't come away with it. But Hesh has been huge, Grace has been huge, and it's Hesh inside again.
And a block there from the junior Justin Mullins, and pushing the ball back the other way is OPRF, but sloppy down low, and here come the Dukes. Outside, Kircher hesitates. We saw him do that a couple times on Friday. He'll take that jumper and make it.
And I've loved what I've seen from Drew Kircher coming up from that. Last year he was on the sophomore team for a while. They called him up. He really performed great to end the year. I mean, of course, COVID slowed things down, but it seems like he's picking up right where he left off.
Rashad tries to drive, and a block there from Hesh, but it'll be called for the foul. So both teams with a foul in the early going, and we talked about foul troubles for the Dukes last time out, and that's ultimately what led to a few turnovers when it comes to things like, whether it was motivation, whether it was, just certain things like that, a momentum shift. And the Dukes, one thing, they couldn't convert at the line, as we'll get our first foul shots of the night here from Rashad Trice.
And, Trice off the mark there with the first one. Gets the second one to go. Happens often enough. Hesh, once again with the early foul. We saw that a lot last year. He's certainly matured this year. He wasn't a fan of the call. It could have gone either way. Nonetheless, Duke's on top by 5 with the basketball.
Out, Hesh 3-ball on the way, off the mark, no good. And pushing the ball back up the other way come the Huskies. 3-ball on the way, off the mark. And taking a great rebound there, great box out, straight up ahead to Hesh. Goes up with the right hand, got it, count it. 8-1, Duke's 7-point advantage.
And there's old reliable Nick Hesh, Jeffrey Grace duo. We've seen 2 baskets already come off of that, off the hands of Grace to Hesh.
Long ball there, no good. And that one taken away by Denton Rohde. I'll tell you what, partner, they're pushing both ways. I mean, we haven't seen much of a slowdown showcase the offense. Great left-hand finger roll there from Drew Kircher. 10-1 and
man, these Dukes are hype.
And forcing Phil Garrett to take a timeout are the Dukes. So, I mean, we're just about halfway into the first quarter. What do you like, what do you not like so far?
I think it's clear that the Dukes are really firing on all assets here. I mean, you see Hesh getting involved early, Kircher getting involved early, both the juniors there. Grace doing a great job slowing it down. That's been necessary for him. And I mean, when Grace is playing like he is right now, this Dukes team can beat a lot of teams. Jeffrey Grace, I mean, I've called a lot of players the spark plug, but Jeffrey Grace, I mean, college has got to get on the line with this kid. He can make plays when it matters. Jeffrey Grace, the two-way player, the playmaker. And you see him drive all the time as well. Grace already 2 assists in this one. And, I mean, that's a big reason the Dukes are on top by 9. If you're looking at the Huskies, I mean, nothing's going their way on the offensive end. Already 3 turnovers. Plenty of them on the baseline. If the Huskies want to get something going here, they have to slow it down. We've seen them try to score in transition. It hasn't worked out for them.
And we talk about seniors that lead. I mean, Jeffrey Grace has been a leader ever since he was a sophomore. He's one of those guys that came in with, the Sam Walshes of the world, the Nick Kosiches. And this is just a guy who really does, he balls out. And so we'll get another look here at the Huskies offensively. 4.5 to go. Dukes lead 10-1, and there's just been not too much to say about the Huskies of OPRF.
Now you see Dunn opting to bring out the full court press with who else but Grace leading the charge.
That's Rashad Trice, 3-ball off the mark. We've seen a lot of those, and Grace fighting for it. And this will, after touching about 1,000 hands, will wind up in the hands of Nick Hesh. And slowing things down now is Grace.
Speaking of hands, lots of COVID protocols taken. You see all the players in masks. Nothing new. That's how it's been all season.
And so what do you make of that? We talk about home court advantage. The Dukes obviously don't really get to use that like they're used to. There's a jumper there, no good. Rebound by, Trice comes away with that one, and he'll be fouled head to the line. But you talk about home court advantage, excuse me. That's something that the Dukes don't have this year. You think that impacts any outcomes of a few of these games?
Home court advantage, I think, isn't looked at the same by everybody. A lot of it does come down to not having to travel. I mean, the Dukes, you saw them out here earlier than OPRF. That's how it goes for the home team, is Trice at the line here.
He'll hit that first one, and OPRF certainly not lacking at the line so far tonight, 2 for 3.
Now, is it the same advantage as having fans? No, it's not. But there's always something to a home court advantage. We've seen it at the college level. We've seen it in the NBA. Even without the fans or limited attendance, I mean, the home court certainly makes a difference. The home team comes out on top the majority of the time. As
Trice misses the second, we'll get our first look at your guy, AJ. Your guy, Alex Sherman, the sophomore, who has been, it feels like lights out from beyond three-point line, but we'll see how things shape up here tonight.
And I mean, Alex Sherman seems to be everybody's guy. So fun to watch, only a sophomore. Getting on the floor here, and he puts it up.
That jumper, strong right-hand floater there. Duke's 10-point lead. As well, from the OPRF side of things, Demetrius Dortch, now in the game, was a starter, I believe, last year for the Huskies. Obviously, let's say it, but obviously demoted. Takes a 3, now Trice from the near side. No good. But a rebound there from Jonathan Vincent. Goes up with the right hand, and I tell you what, AJ, it's been very unreliable down low so far for OPRF.
Oh, man, it seems like nothing's working for him on the baseline.
Kircher, strong take, and finish with the right hand.
Down by 10 points. That is way too easy for the Dukes. Kircher almost gets a steal there. I mean, that is far too easy for the Dukes. If you are down by 10 points and you're just letting guys walk in on you like that, I mean, he doesn't want to burn a second timeout this early, but it almost seems necessary. These Dukes just have so much momentum. And I mean, obviously, such thing as a momentum stopper, at least the timeout slows it down a bit. Looks like they'll opt to play it out with Grace up top here on the defense.
And you know what's interesting? We saw it last week. We saw the Dukes get out to a quick start with Hinsdale Central. Obviously, that game did not go the way it looked in the early going, and here it looks like a similar story. But this is a different-looking OPRF team. As a block there from Hesh than in years past, but everybody on both sides of the ball hustling. I mean, it just happens to be getting in the hands of more Dukes than Huskies.
And I mean, it just continues on that baseline. It seems like the Huskies are really trying to attack Rhodey on the baseline, and he's having none of it. I mean, he has had his hand in nearly every defensive play.
Great, strong take, but he'll be called for the charge, and that will be the third foul on the Dukes. We talked about foul troubles. Here we are again. 3 fouls already with 2:03 to go in the first quarter.
And Grace already with 2 of them. I mean, that's a player you cannot have in foul trouble. It's going to bring players like Luke Malaga in early. Grace goes to the bench.
Down the stretch on Friday, you know, guys like Grace, guys like Kircher, Rhodey, excuse me, had 3 fouls. So when you're going into the second half with 3 fouls, you're walking on glass. As Dorch unable to hit it, this one went up and over. So back the other way comes York, and applying the full pressure here, AJ, is OPRF.
They've got to get something going. I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but I know everyone talks about it, but that Dorch jumper, a bit of an unorthodox form, barely jumps off the ground. A lot of people compare it to that of Alonzo Ball, and that is just a hard hit.
That was Connor Haney on the tackle, I guess we should say. I mean, that was Danny Trevathan coming over the middle. I think Kircher was playing the role of Devontae Adams. I mean, that was a strong hit.
Oh man, you don't see that too often in high school basketball. Love the analogy, but Kircher looks to be okay. He'll be stay on the floor here. So there's a bit of discussion going on.
I mean, yeah, it's something that, you know. I mean, if you had students here, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, we would have been hearing screams and everything.
Nevertheless, York Sports Network, your place for all York Sports streams. At least there's a way to watch it. If you told me a couple weeks ago we'd be having high school basketball, I wouldn't believe you. So at least there is a form of high school basketball.
And proud to be here. Sherman, good look to Rhodey, but unable to. I mean, that's something that, you know, has been a problem. Finishing at the basket as the 3 ball there by Justin Mullins is good. That's finishing down low. That's something that, you know, York hasn't been too good at doing as of late.
And you see Hesh often on the perimeter. I mean, I would like to see him get inside. Obviously done.
Kircher fouled there. This one
following suit with Doran, both having Hesh play more the perimeter. And I mean, going back to that last York offensive drive, Rhodey seemed like he had some space there. He's got to get that one to go, get it up a little quicker. And it allowed OPRF to get this down to another 1-possession lead.
As Kircher hits the first, so that's a positive sign. The Dukes are 100% the line, one for one. As Rhodey will come out, Kastner will come in.
And Kircher already with 7 points on the day. If he hits this, he'll have half of the Duke points. Huge scoring from the junior who was called up from the sophomore team in the middle of last season.
He hits both. Dukes lead by 11. And back comes OPRF. You know, OPRF does look different than they did even last year. This is a team that clearly lost a lot of people with 3 juniors starting and a sophomore. Of course, I mean, I guess you could say that about the teams on both sides.
Both teams looking very different. I mean, it's another OPRF turnover on the baseline. You hate to be repetitive, but you almost have to here. I mean, they've got to get that fixed. Coach still opting not to use a timeout.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where when we talk about, you know, both of these teams looking different, these are not tall teams by any means. You know, I mean, we're looking at now Charlie Sessa was a guy who was here on Friday with Hinsdale Central. And this is a little bit of deja vu here. If you remember last week, to close the opening quarter was an Alex Sherman 3-ball to put the Dukes up by about 9. And it looks like we'll have a similar situation here as the Dukes slowing down and showcasing the Mike Dunn offense.
Sherman with it. The Dukes certainly great ball movement. They trust every player on this team. I mean, you could tell that the Dukes would be okay with this final shot being into anyone's hand.
10 seconds to go in the opening quarter. Looking around, Kircher with 6. Malaga from deep, unable to hit, rebound by Dortch. And that's how we will close the first quarter. So the Dukes lead 16-5, 11-point advantage. Both teams with 3 fouls, and we will be right back at the end of the first quarter. It's 16-5 Dukes. So at the end of the first quarter, it was Duke 16, OPRF 5. Again, shades of Friday, as you could say. I mean, there was a quick start from York against Hinsdale Central, and then a momentum swing. So we'll see if the Dukes can prevent that here tonight. Different game, different story. But AJ, so far, I mean, what do you like? I mean, there's a lot to say that you like, but what are some things the Dukes can improve on both sides of the ball?
Well, one thing I've been impressed with is the team chemistry. I mean, it seems like they all trust each other's shots. They get the open looks. And, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how that could play into this new lineup with Patrick Castor in the game. As far as something to improve on, I mean, the Dukes have been really firing on all assets. That's what needs to be improved upon is the Huskies' turnover issues. I mean, it seems like every other drive, the ball ends up in the Green Dukes' hands.
Picking the pocket of Ramon Yarbo was Drew Kircher on that turnover. And you know what? The Dukes are doing a great job of being patient offensively. That's something that we didn't see too much of on Friday. And that's something now that they certainly have improved upon.
Yeah, and it seems like these Dukes, I mean, they wait for the open look, but they're not afraid to shoot. They're really great at all assets of this offense. They're slowing it down, but the players trust their shots when they're there.
This one taken away by Justin Mullins. He'll go up and one bucket.
Man, sloppy play there from Denton Rhodey. Not a pass he could be making. Seemed to have a lane to the inside. Opts to try to get it to Alex Sherman. Of course, the rest is history. OPRF, maybe the spark that they needed. I mean, they need to get something going here. Shot to cut it down to an 8-point Dukes lead.
So shooting the N1 basket is Justin Mullins. Kerplunk.
And you know,
no good. And here comes Rhodey.
Everyone's got their free throw rituals. That one's interesting. The double behind the back. Didn't work out for him there, but putting on a little show for the viewers at YSN.
As Malaga on the near side, looking for something, if anything, and that one last touched by Max Murray. But it is interesting. It felt like, you know, I wouldn't say the Dukes were chucking up shots on Friday, but I think they got a little bit ahead of themselves after hitting, you know, a series of threes.
Yeah, the Dukes definitely slowing it down, doing exactly what they didn't do earlier in the week. When you're off to a big lead, slow it down, keep the pace, keep the pressure on. Don't get me wrong, don't want to be the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl, but I mean, much better showing so far from the Dukes.
Malaga to Sherman, risky pass there from the sophomore. And that's Rhodey's second foul. First foul.
First foul, but man, I mean, these Dukes now already up to 5 fouls. I mean, it seems both teams are struggling to move the ball around the baseline. Plenty of turnovers for both sides, resulted in some sloppy plays.
And we talked about momentum shifts. This is something that the Dukes cannot afford, is Sherman taken out, Tyron Casey, the junior, put in. And we'll see if OPRF can make the most of the lack of offense on the last possession from the Dukes. Is a great drive there, but Rhodey, oh man, that was close. It could have hurt some slapping there as Kircher looks up the floor, now giving to Casey, looking around to Malaga. He'll hit the jumper, no.
And, I mean, that substitution from Dunn was absolutely textbook as the ball goes out of bounds there. I think that was a great move to get Tyrion into the game. I mean this in the best way possible. Him and Jeffrey Grace play extremely twitchy on defense, and it seems to fluster enemy teams. We've seen both of these players force plenty of turnovers this game, or this year rather. Grace already with a few this game. Tyrion seems to be playing it with that same style, both two-way players.
Dortch from the near side, strong, 16-10. Hey, I'll tell you what, that 11-point lead has dwindled here as of late.
Absolutely. So it looks like they're opting for Casey to run the point. Now it's Kircher back with it.
Kircher looking around. That's great hands there from Christian Marshall, and back the other way comes OPRF. The jumper there is on strong by Keegan Elmiger.
Wow, I mean, the momentum has completely shifted. The plates have turned.
It's shifted. I mean, this is something that, you know, this is where things are put into question. You know, this is where you really have to gather your team, get them together, tell them the right things. So AJ, if you're in that huddle right now, you're Mike Dunn. What are you telling your guys?
I mean, I've got to, not to be the dead horse again, but you've got to slow down the basketball. They cannot make the same error that they made in this past loss. I mean, the Dukes, great job at starting off early, starting off hot, getting on the board. We saw a lot of spread scoring. Now it almost seems like they're trying to do a little too much. And this OPRF press, to give them credit, it has looked good ever since they switched to this. It's been forcing turnovers. I mean, we saw that tackle at the half-court line, but after that, I mean, it has looked sharp.
And folks, we talked about this is a young York team, but this feels like an even younger OPRF team with 3 juniors on the starting lineup for tonight. And it's just, you know, both of these programs are in very interesting positions. Both teams this year undergoing a coaching change. Phil Gary here with OPRF and Mike Dunn at York. AJ, do you see any shades? I asked Bobby this the other night. You see any shades of Vince Doran offense or defense in this Mike Dunn ran team?
The main comparison that I like to draw between Dunn and Doran, I think that there are some key differences, but something that I think is just, oh man, almost sloppy pass there.
Lucky it ended up with Grace, and he'll try and drive in. Strong bucket, making something out of nothing. And
get on the phone.
A breath of fresh air, right?
Yeah, this Jeffrey Grace kid is special. I mean, he comes back in, and all of a sudden the Dukes are back on top. But if we're going back to what he's doing differently than Doran, that's off the mark there.
That might have been prayer.
Yeah.
And Grace easily breaking that full court press that OPRF couldn't get into quick enough.
They both Dukes coaches great at mid-game changes, mid-game alterings, and you see Dunn doing that right now. It seems like the Dukes regaining the momentum. They're also great at substitutions. Love putting in Casey there. It seemed like something eminent of Doran. Both great at keeping the team together. And Grace gets called.
Yeah, we don't have, listen, we're not courtside, so we don't get clarification as to what the call was, but we can assume because of what we just saw that was a mental error there, right? I mean, those are things that you got to prevent. There's 2 things that killed the Dukes on Friday. It was mental errors and preventable plays. You know, it was just things that, you know, where we talked about a roadie right here, just throwing up the ball. Now, that was the only pass that he had. But, you know, that's just the first example that comes to mind. It's a preventable turnover. And
Take
mental
your
errors.
time.
Mental errors.
Slow it down. You got to imagine that's exactly what Dunn's telling the players right now. Still up by 6. I mean, it feels like OPRF's in the lead after this momentum shift. The Dukes are still in the lead. It's a new game. Over half the second quarter still to go. Slow it down. Get the ball in the hand of your senior Jeffrey Grace. Tell him not to do too much, and I think that will be a recipe for success for the Dukes. As for the Huskies, I mean, dare I say, so far this game, it almost seems like sophomore Sam Lewis has seemed like the best player on this team. You got to trust the youth. If he's on the floor, which he is, you have to trust him. Yes, he's younger, but he is on the same playing field as everyone out there. If he's on the floor, get him the ball, let him put it up, and let it fly from the sophomore.
And, you know, one of my takeaways, and rightfully so for excusing himself, you know, Fred Levins took the time off to nurse that ankle. I should not nurture, that's a weird word to use, but to nurse that ankle and focus on football. And like I said, rightfully so. But he's a guy he's Charlie Hustle, right? He gives these guys a spark, and fatigue is something that seemed to play into this whole York team the other night, and that's, you know, where the game just got out of hand.
And only 7 Dukes have played every game this season.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talk about Dunn utilizing a lot of aspects of the bench, but at the same, it feels like that. But I think we're just adjusting to the new look of this team, right? I mean, it's just, you know, we talk about Sherman, and he's obviously a great player. He's, you know, I mean, in the best sense possible, he only has room to grow, and that's scary for a lot of teams, right? But, you know, you just ask yourself, are there any seniors on that bench? Are there any even juniors on that bench that could produce, you know, not a higher level, but to help you a little bit more? Is Hesh unable to get that call? Was
there's a call
on the floor. But yeah, it's just something that's so interesting, and there's so many, you know, parts to this machine. It's just a very, very interesting times call for interesting teams,
yeah.
Right?
And I mean, hard to make exact comparisons, but Sherman has shoot it
wide
there.
Open.
And
they hit that one the other night.
That just continues to feed into what I was just going to say. I mean, Sherman, room to grow, reminding me a lot of Max Christie's younger brother, Cam Christie. Hard to make direct comparisons, especially in the
race, in a 21-12 Duke advantage with 3:15 to go in the first half.
Had an open guy in the corner, opts to reset with Hesh up top.
And like we said, patience. Patience. You know, they know when to do it, and that's something that you like to see. They looked like a young team on Friday. They almost looked like they got overwhelmed very easily, and then all of a sudden we had a 3-point shootout. And this is something that, you know, you love to see them kind of, you know, get their bindings again, as Malaga kicks to Hesh.
Hesh with the turnover now.
I tell you what, you know, that looked a little, that was iffy by my view. And we will be
goaltending there on Nick Hesh. I mean, that was a great pump fake. He had 2 Dukes. You could hear the footsteps, but the pump fake stays in there, stays strong, gets it to go off the Nick Hesh goaltend.
And given the goaltending call there, at least for games I call my first of the year, I mean, he almost jumped as high as me, but it was called on Nick Hesh. And Kircher and the Dukes easily breaking the press yet again. 3-on-1 back the other way. Hesh with an easy right. Hold on real quickly here. If you're OPRF, why are you letting them break the press that easily, right? I mean, it's all about getting to your spot when you're putting the press on, and they're just not doing that, and the Dukes are breaking it easily. It's going to start to cost them here. Sherman from the corner off the mark, no good. Rebound right to Rhodey. He'll go up and almost getting the and one bucket needed. Just an inch inside, and he would have had that one.
With the defensive scheme, I mean, why run the press if you're going to let them beat it that easily? I understand the argument, just tiring out your guys. And it seemed like after they beat the press, they had a 2-on-1, just didn't see the open guy in the middle. Rhodey really needs these to go here.
Yeah, Rhodey at the line shooting 2. And so OPRF with 7 fouls, the Dukes with 5, a very different story than Friday night, as the Dukes, as I mentioned before, almost reaching what felt like 20 fouls. But nonetheless, sending Hinsdale Central into the bonus relatively early.
See Rhodey knock down that first one. He's a 75% free throw shooter on the year.
I'll tell you, without fans, I mean, you don't even hear people walking. It gets eerie quiet. It's a little uncomfortable.
In a way, for those players, it could be even harder to knock down a shot when it's just like completely silent like that. I mean,
and so in a 24-17 game with 1:40 to go. AJ, go ahead, finish that thought. We'll scratch it. Forget it. All right, we'll scratch it. Forget it.
Got a message there that our scoreboard's a little slow. Threw off the mojo, if you will, but nonetheless, Duke's on top. 24-17, 1:36 to go in this second quarter. OPF trying to get something to go here before the half. Looking to do just that on an inbound. We've seen the Dukes have problems with that this season. And they will absolutely need to recover here. Now it's the sophomore, Sam Lewis in the corner.
You know, this is something that's interesting. You know, OPRF has not been slowing things down as of late, as Sam Lewis, the sophomore, will direct traffic. And the jumper goes there with 1:20 left and a 5-point lead now.
That was exactly what the doctor ordered there. Let's see if they'll tighten up the press. They won't. Dukes have another odd man rush.
Malaga straight to Hesh from the far side. 3 ball is off the mark, right to the hands of Rhodey. He'll go up. This rolls right in and out. That, I mean,
the toilet bowl.
I tell you what, that one looked That was a little iffy again just based on our angle, folks. But yeah, that at times this rim is at a lid on it.
And, Hesh, as much as any of the Dukes, you see him a very emotional player. You see him hard on himself after that shot, shaking his head. He'll also be the guy to get extremely hype after a made three. Got to contain it, though. Under a minute to go here until the half.
And we saw it at LT, right? You talk about that energy from Hesh as Grace can't hit. Back up goes Rhodey, and we'll be headed to the line. But it's one of those things where you just need guys like that. At times, I know people might not love the guys that do that, but when people can see the emotion that you have for a play, or nonetheless the game,
yeah,
it really is something that, feels, very contagious to, not just the team, but everyone in the gym as Rhodey hits that one.
No, yeah, I mean, it's the age-old argument. You'll see it for scouts. Some people love it, some people hate it. I mean, I absolutely agree with you there. I mean, it seems to get the entire team into it. It's just at the swings of the down where the problems can occur, that seem to bang off the iron 6 times before knocking down.
And you talk about iron, that one rolling right around the toilet bowl and straight in as a 26-19 lead now for the Dukes from the far side. 3 ball off the mark was Anthony Coleman, and OPRF probably should be shying away and looking inside a little bit more from just that outside shot.
Now, no shot clock at the high school level. Dukes have a chance to slow it down here, potentially hold for the last shot. If there's an open look, surely they'll take it. But it wouldn't hurt to run down the clock up 7 here.
There's that shade of the great defense from OPRF, and as you mentioned, holding for the final shot will be the Dukes. Now Drew Kircher with 10 seconds looking around, and great hands there from the sophomore, Lewis. And who else but Sherman, near side, 3 ball off the mark, taken back the other way. Lewis throws it up with 1. Off the mark, hits the back iron.
Man.
So at the end of the first half, AJ, real quickly, what do you like, what do you not like?
Well, you see them once again trusting Sherman with the final shot. I do like that. I do like that both teams really trusting the underclassmen. I mean, he was open, he wanted it, he took it, it was off the mark. What I really didn't like there from the Dukes, with 2 seconds left, it seemed like the effort went away. Let him get down the court and get an open look. I mean, it seemed like the Dukes were holding for the last shot. All of a sudden, it's OPRF with a great chance to cut this to a 4-point lead. I mean, the Dukes got to stay disciplined, got to stay on top of the energy. Hesh got to get in the right mental zone. Everybody does. But the Dukes, love what I've seen from them so far. Jeffrey Grace, Nick Hesh, Alex
And we welcome you back for the second half, 26-19. AJ, we talked about what you liked and what you didn't like. But for this second half, what do the Dukes need to do to walk away with a W?
The Dukes just have to continue what they've been doing. We saw a little sloppy period there earlier in the second, but if they could continue what they did so well, attacking the basket, slowing down the pace, the press seemed to work as well. If they could continue hitting on the goods and erase the bads, I think this should be relatively easy for the Dukes.
Room for a good one is Hesh with the right hand, strong and good. Dukes with the first points of the half.
Hesh up to 8 points now. Him and Kircher, both juniors with 8 points. So he's dominating this one.
And the inside presence in the first half of John Vincent was just not there, taken away by Grace. Another right-hand finish, and the Dukes go up 30-19. Lead extends to 30.
And Jeffrey Grace is coming into his own today. Dukes up by 11 and almost a steal. Jeffrey Grace doing and they call it travel. It'll be Dukes basketball. Jeffrey Grace doing exactly what we said he had to pregame. He slowed it down. He stepped it up on the defensive end. He certainly stepped it up on the offensive end. Man, he has looked good. It looks like OPRF not running the press as we expected. Wasn't working out for him, just tiring the players out.
And, you know, based on the way things went, down 11, and then you end the first half as Kircher goes up with a very strong right hand, unable to finish. But, you know, you talk about being down 11, you bring it back to, 26-19. You know, they've been kind of, going back and forth between 5 and 9 points, and understandably so. Is a great look down there to Trice. He'll go up and unable to draw the end one, but nonetheless headed to the line for 2, and Hesh shaking up on the play.
So he's holding that knee. That is not an injury that the Dukes could afford. He's being helped up.
And so this, much...
A little slow moving. That was a great defensive effort from Hesh.
You hear that? All we need to hear is, let's go, let's go. All right. Well, let's go. I mean, I was going to say, it would get very interesting to see who would fulfill the role of Nick Hesh. That got scary for a second.
Yeah, that is a hard role to fill. He's definitely won the junior battle between him and John Vincent, number 42 for the Huskies. He was silent in the first half. Hesh has done a great job on the defensive end, shutting him down. And on the offensive end, he's got the easy buckets that he's needed to get.
As Trice hits the first of 2, and now both of them. So back to 9 points we go. And back to the full court press goes OPRF.
And, I mean, the Dukes don't even look to have any trouble getting him past. Rody's open. They don't see him.
That one, something or someone was out of bounds.
Hesh threw it off the out of bounds there on that bounce pass. You see him shake his head again. He's playing great. Got to keep the head up. And that's a deep ball.
Great eyes, AJ, as the 3 ball there. Rebound by Hesh. There's got to be a foul somewhere in there, right? It will be going the other way. This foul will be called. And I believe it was either Vincent or Trice, but
that will be John Vincent's 3rd foul. I mean, a little recipe for disaster. More fouls than points. 3 fouls, no points on the day. Vincent, not a player OPRF could really afford to send to the bench either. Clearly the tallest guy in the squad.
But it's one of those things where, his production on both sides of the ball has been costly because it's just been non-existent. His Rody, the jumper, we don't see that a whole lot. Unable to hit, and a foul on Trice. I mean, Hesh is taking a beating here in the early going of the second half, and he'll head to the line and shoot 2.
Only Trice's first foul. Definitely not a player that OPRF could afford to go down the spiral.
And, you talked about guys who have, made a little bit of an impact here for OPRF, and, the first one that comes to mind leading the team with 8 points is number 20, the junior Justin Mullins. I mean, he's been, it was more of a hot start, had the hot hand early, but, I mean, nonetheless, quite the amount of production from him thus far here tonight.
They tried to throw a lob there. Hesh quick to hold the hands up, didn't want to pick up another foul.
Straight to the middle, Grace goes to Hesh, and now slowing back things down.
That is a great play call from Dunn. That's just the classic press beater. Well, give and go action.
Rody to the opposite side. Looking around is Grace, and
Kircher seemed to almost have an open 3 there. Passed it up to reset the offense. Duke's definitely slowing it down here.
You call that maturity as Rody, another jumper.
Man, we're seeing Rody take jump shots. Are we in an alternate universe right now?
It is, it's something that you know, we kind of have gotten used to not expect the unexpected, right? You know, we talk about as the block will be called there on Malaga,
And you hear
much to the displeasure of Lex Harrison here on the bench and Coach Dunn. But, you know, with Jeffrey Grace, I mean, Jeffrey Grace is pulling up from, you know, three-point land on Friday. That's something that we're just not used to seeing from the senior. And coming back in now will be number 14, Demetrius Dorch.
Grace has really struggled from three this year. I mean, you want to play a little guess the stat line.
That was a dual block there from Brody and Hesh, but winding up in the hands of the Huskies yet again. As we talked about it, that man, Justin Mullins, hits double digits.
Hitting on the Jeffrey Grace threes, shooting 6.3% from the three-point land this year. I mean, that is by and large the lowest on the team. He's taken plenty of shots that haven't been going.
Brody looking around hesitates. Now Hesh would drive, I mean, wide open right down Broadway.
I mean, when you're that tall, everything's open.
Seriously.
Jumps and it seems like no one could contest him up there. Hesh also has great vertical. See him dunking in the pregame.
It was just too easy for him. Great takeaway, near takeaway there from
Grace with the hustle and a timeout charge to Dunn.
So much happened there, but a great, you know, great call by Dunn. I mean, that's a great timeout to take, a responsible timeout. I mean, all right. I mean, we ask you, what do you like, what do you not like? But you think everyone's settling kind of into their roles?
Certainly. I mean, you see JG3, if you will, Jeffrey Grace the third. He has looked, I mean, great all game. All three quarters, the senior has stepped into his own. We didn't see it on Friday. We certainly did tonight. I mean, Jeffrey Grace is what everyone expected and more tonight. Grace stepped into that role. Nick Hesh has been huge. I mean, huge in multiple ways. He's tall, and he gets them in. I mean, he gets the important buckets when they matter. Hesh, every single time, it seems like this OPRF team is crawling back, slowing down the momentum. Hesh seems to get that big shot. Hesh, Grace, Kircher, this entire Dukes team, I mean, even Rhodey with the mid-range J that he got to go, I mean, they are hot right now.
Yeah, we talked about the lack of upperclassmen production, you know, that was occurring, you know, up to game, well, I mean, now we're at game 7, but I'd say up to game 6 against Hinsdale Central. It just wasn't, you know, just nothing was really going. As Kircher, that's not a good sign there. AJ rolled his ankle on.
Yeah, he's doing a little hobbling.
I believe that was on Mullins.
He is in noticeable pain.
Run through the motions as Grace trying to drive and cut. Rhodey up to Kircher.
Tell you on that move, his ankle looked fine. That was an amazing move. Double pump. Grace there.
Great tipping. He boxes out, gets things going, but you can tell.
Yeah, Kircher is in immediate pain.
Great block there from Rhodey.
But Dunn opting not to call a timeout. The Dukes have too much momentum, and it's Kircher with the hurt ankle.
And a block there from Justin Mullins. Great hustle play, and back comes a sophomore. Get the N1 bucket. That was Sam Lewis. An interesting turn of events here. And we'll keep an eye on Drew Kircher in noticeable pain.
Absolutely. I mean, you understand you want to keep the momentum. It was clear after all that transition. I mean, Dunn probably should have used a timeout. He already used one early, didn't want to get down to 3. But, I mean, Kircher in pain. Hesh ends up committing a lazy foul on the other end. Timeout would have been helpful there from Dunn. Still stepping into the coaching shoes, done a great job thus far.
So to no one's surprise, Kircher seems to be just fine.
Just walking around. Trying to get in good enough shape to get back into the game.
Real quickly, just to clear up any confusion. I believe Sherman has blood somewhere.
So two players seem to get it going there on those transitions. Yeah, Trainer is wiping something off Sherman's shirt. Looks like he's still looking. He's going back to the bench now.
And the N1 bucket executed by the sophomore Sam Lewis.
Malaga just beat that press all by himself. Right back
Hesh
to him.
Back to Mal. Had a little backdoor cut there from Casey, but unable to read it was Malaga. And slowing things down yet again is Grace. Looking around inside of Grace. We saw him do this a few times.
JG3.
Let's do it. Let's give it to him down low.
The spinning layup, whatever you want to call that, the spinorama. I call it the JG3. He is on fire tonight.
So the largest lead of the night for the Dukes, 38-26, as Trice can't hit. Great box out there from Rhodey, allows Grace to come up with the defensive rebound, and here comes Malaga.
Malaga dribbles it off his own foot. You hear the OPRF bench finally getting a little
Down
vocal.
low, Grace.
He wants that same look.
Deja vu, but unable to hit. Great defense there from Justin Mullins.
Such a more normal thing in today's game of basketball, almost shooting for a foul.
Lewis, the jumper. No good. Rebound by Casey.
Shooting for a foul. So imminent these days. Players just going up with the intent to go to the line. It's called a free throw for a reason.
So, in great news, Drew Kircher is back at the scores table and preparing to check in, but you know, AJ, we've had some back and forth, I guess you could say sloppy basketball as of late as Casey. Just inside the free throw line hits that one. 40-26, the largest lead of the night for the Dukes. And just we talk about sloppiness. That's a really poor pass there from the junior Justin Mullins.
No, Kieran Casey, not the biggest guy on the floor, but I mean, he makes his impact heard when he's in the game. Only listed at 148 pounds. Tyrann getting on the board, playing some great defense. Looks like he'll be in the backcourt here
Back
with
to
an effort
the
to get it off.
full court press goes OPRF, and yet again breaking without ease is Drew Kircher. Back into the ball game and making his presence heard, but unable to.
And once
hit that
again,
shot.
you see Hesh looking to get hyped there. Got off the bench, trying to hold the team back. Kircher just off the mark. Gets the rebound to Grace.
You know, we talk about the importance of slowing things down. I think that's hard to do. Is Casey unable to hit the three? Great play there. It hit off number 31, Keegan Almiger.
Man, Rhodey threw that one hard, and I mean, more than we've seen it all night. Hesh on the bench. He seems to be more excited than anybody right now. After every shot, getting up, getting hyped, getting his teammates into it. I mean, quite the showing from the junior tonight. Plenty of room to grow.
Casey back to Kastner. Now Kircher looking to get something going. So we got 1:50 left to go in the third quarter. Kircher to Rhodey. Looking around. And just, I mean, that's just, you know, not knowing your surroundings there.
Yeah, with the Duke's offense, expect to have somebody there, but that was actually him who would have been there on the inside there. Just a sloppy pass. OPRF looking to capitalize off of it here with 1:42 to go in this third quarter, down by 14.
And so Alex Sherman back into the ball game, and the score remains 40-26. I would say all Dukes, but you know, the score hasn't really shown the back and forth we've had here in the past few minutes.
Both teams slowing down a bit. Duke's only used 8 players so far in this one.
Great jumper there, but unable to execute.
There's a little bit of confusion on who will be doing the passing. After that confusion, it will be Justin Mullins.
So 1:23 to go.
That's a
deep three.
Wow, I mean, you got to be feeling your shot to shoot from that deep a land.
Yarbo clearly was. Taken away by Yarbo.
Wow, I mean, that is a play and a half.
Right-hand finish, 40-28. Coming up on 1 minute to go in the third quarter.
Duke's on top by 12 with the ball. We've seen teams hold for the last shot with this much to remain. It doesn't seem like Dunn's typical strategy.
Great take there from Sherman. Can't hit it off the back iron. And 50 seconds remain, and here comes OPRF.
$1 million move, 10-cent finish there. He had the open shot, couldn't get it to go.
I mean, you know, it looks like, I won't say just Justin Mullins, but it looks like OPRF is just forcing shots.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's certainly not just Mullins. I mean, there's a clear sense of urgency in the wrong way down by 12 here. Firing from all over the court.
Foul called on Dorch. Grace.
And we've seen a lot of Dukes slow to get up tonight. Lots of scares. Knowing Grace, he's a fighter. I'm sure he'll be okay.
Landed on his hip. So as a result of that, you know, we'll stay out there. Grace stays in, but in, you know, visible discomfort as Hesh passes it in, and you can expect the Dukes to hold for the final shot of the quarter.
You know, last time that we were saying those words, OPRF ended up getting a great look. I'm sure Dunn made sure to make a point of that. Just over 10 seconds to go here in the third quarter.
I'm going to say, let's get the ball to Alex Sherman. A foul will be called on Yarbo. So for those who cannot see the graphic at the bottom of your screen, it is 40-28. The Dukes lead their rival Huskies by 12 with 5.5 seconds to go in the third quarter.
And there is visual dismay on the OPRF bench. Diego Garcia upset.
Sherman, the jumper, unable to hit.
Kircher
trying to get it to go.
And they got a lot of putbacks, couldn't get him to go. OPRF trailing by 12, gonna need a spark plug. Who will it be? Who wants to be the hero for the Huskies? Dukes on top by 12, 40-28. The end of this third quarter. York Sports Network, your place for all York sports. We'll be back right after this intermission.
So the final 8 minutes, Dukes lead by 12. AJ, what do they got to do to close this one out?
Just continue what they're doing in the third. I mean, we saw some sloppy ball from them, but it seemed like they were forcing OPRF to play scared. And when you're playing scared, you're not likely playing well.
To the far side, 3 ball is hit by Justin Mullins.
Man, Mullins has been great. I mean, a lone bright spot today for the Huskies. And JG3 going all the way through the press. Gets it to Rhodey.
Rhodey gets the and one bucket. So 42-31 and a chance to extend and match their largest lead of the night at 12.
You know, you see John Vincent in foul trouble. It forces Connor Hohn into the game. He was very unhappy with that foul call. Arms appeared to possibly be straight up. Nonetheless, can't hang on it. Got to continue to succeed.
And gets that one. We've seen a different Duke team at the line here tonight, a much more efficient free throw shooting team, and that's definitely paid off so far for the Dukes. And a blocking foul will be called on Grace.
Man, I'll tell you, I mean, OPRF trailing by 12, as you said, doesn't fully indicate the back and forth that we have seen today. And I think a lot of that is due to the substitution that we saw in the second half of Ramon Yarborough. I mean, he looks shifty. He looks completely different than anything we've seen from either team so far.
Mullins.
That's way off the mark.
Yeah, it's just something that, you know, you can get if you can get something going. This one taken away by Yarborough. You mentioned him. OPRS version of a Charlie Hustle, excuse me, is Christian Marshall, the and one jumper.
You know, it's not typical for a team to have an almost completely new lineup in the fourth quarter. I mean, you expect to see the starters, but this lineup has really been getting it done better for OPRF. I mean, only a minute into the quarter, but I mean, it really seems like they've been able to slow it down, and I mean, Yarborough leading the charge.
As Marshall will execute the and one basket. 43-34 is where the lead stands now. And you know, Rhodey was creating something with those jump shots, and he'll hit the right-hand finish. 45-34 now.
And that's Yarborough. Man, that will shut you up. Rhodey, the Duke's getting hype.
And so real quickly, I mean, you think Yarbo is OPRF's version of a you know, energy spark?
I mean, Yarborough is seeming like the Glavin. It's a weird comparison. It is. Very different builds. Glavin, a mammoth of a man. Yarborough, much smaller, skinnier, but I mean, both players, Tim Glavin, of course, a senior for the Dukes last season. I mean, both players seem to have come in. It matters when it mattered. And I mean, all of a sudden, the Dukes are only on top by 8. I mean, never say never if this momentum can continue. I mean, Rhodey, great job with the pump fake. Instantly shut up by Ramon Yarborough. 6:44 to go in this fourth quarter. Dukes on top by 8. Dunn calling a much-needed timeout. Both teams with 3 remaining.
So just to give you an idea, AJ just compared Raymond Yarbo to Tim Glavin. That's I tell you what, that's a hot take.
Probably the first time those two players have ever been compared.
It might be the only time.
It probably will be, but you get some unprecedented moments in the York Sports Network booth, and I could draw some comparisons from their game. You never know. Tim Glavin, Ramon Yarborough, spark plugs for these teams late.
As Kircher, great defense there from Marshall. But the Dukes still hold. Driving is Rhodey.
That will be called on the floor.
Holding. That one comes against number 40, Connor Haney.
The big man of the Huskies continuing to rack up the fouls. He now has 3. Also saw starter John Vincent with 3. The Dukes doing a better job of getting the ball in this game.
Looking around Kircher from the near side. Inside to Hesh. We've seen this a lot tonight. Now Rhodey driving. It's been easy from that right side for Rhodey. Back up to Kircher. Great spin moving. Yet again, it comes to Rhodey on this near side every time. Great cut there from Malaga, but unable to finish.
And the other way.
Justin Mullins up and in.
All over Denton Rhodey. I mean, that was just disrespectful. The whole Huskies bench is up. That was unreal. I mean, the offense has clearly been working through Denton Rhodey. You don't see that often, an offense working through the baseline of a big man. But, I mean, they shut it down when they needed to, and now it's Huskies basketball.
Right through the legs of Luke Malaga.
Dukes.
So, AJ, in the past 2 games, there have been 2 quote-unquote posters, and neither of them belong to the Dukes. The other one, Charlie Sessa, the fantastic center from Hinsdale Central, and that one, I mean, I tell you what, we talk about sophomore production, but Justin Mullins seems to be like he's just about as good as it gets, the leading scorer with 15 of the Huskies' 39.
You know, if SportsCenter was watching for that dunk, wouldn't be surprised to see it in the top 10. That was good by any caliber. College, NBA, I mean, that was aggressive. That's everything you want from a driving dunk. A lot of the time you see high school players attempting those and just blatantly throwing it off the iron. I mean, that was something else. Smart timeout here from Dunn. I mean, it was clear OPRF they were all on their feet on the bench. They were excited. Dunn slowing it down. His Duke still on top by 6. All momentum in the Huskies' favor.
And folks, if we had the abilities, we would play that back in slow-mo, but you know, I even want to see that again. That was a fantastic, no matter who you're rooting for here tonight, we can all agree that was just a fantastic play, and you give him even more credit once you hear that Justin Mullins is a sophomore.
And I mean, that's the beauty of YSN being on YouTube. You can go back and watch it again for yourself.
So slowing things down is Christian Marshall. Great hands there from Kircher.
Yarborough, another great recovery. He has the great handles. It's just shifty, man.
As Mullins, near side, outside Marshall. Unable to roll the 3 home. So at 4, just under 5 minutes.
Oh boy, that would have been a big 3-pointer. Kircher inside.
Great right-hand finish from the opposite side, the left-hand side. Well, that's just
Kircher
too
just
easy.
worked through the whole Huskies team.
Unable to hit the jumper, but yeah, that was a great finish there with the right hand on the left side.
Man, OPRF has really been up in the pressure. They've been inbounding at full court. I mean, it's been working. They've been generating open looks. They've just got to get him to go. Yarborough off the mark there. Here, OPRF bench getting into it now.
Foul called there on number 30, Clark Tark. Is that real? Is that? We'll wait for the PA announcer to say that name. We'll never know.
Media timeout.
We'll never know. It was Clark Turk. We'll say Turk. So apologies to Clark. Maybe Griswold. We don't know. Clark Turk or Clark Turk.
That's what happens when you have Gavin Hughes write your roster, folks.
Just for the record, for those at home, my handwriting is really not that bad as AJ is making it sound.
I mean, you can't tell the difference between the U's and the A's. It's hard to tell here. Nonetheless, apologies to number 30, Clark, question mark. Luckily, hasn't been on the floor too much in this one. Dukes up by 8, 4:23 to go in this fourth quarter. We're in for a good one.
You can give me a break. You can tell the A's from the U's on other parts of it. It's just that one name.
I mean,
Clark.
what is that? Jacob Delaney? Jacob Delaney?
It's Delaney. Come on, give me a break, man. All right, so there's 2 spots on the roster that you can't. I was writing it fast.
And they both have seen the floor tonight. But nonetheless, appreciate Hughes taking his time to write the roster in the first place. And we'll stop focusing on his handwriting and get back to the matters at hand. Dukes on top by 8 at the line.
So at the line, Jeffrey Grace. Misses that one. And so 47-39. It's a closer game than it looks. And, you just talk about sloppy passes. That was just about as sloppy as it gets. Straight into the hands of the Cornell wide receiver commit, Luke Malaga.
And coming into tonight, Grace only shooting 50% from the line. I mean, but that's not what he's there to do. He is not your prototypical sharpshooter.
Great take
wow.
there from Demetrius Dorch. We talk about a great opposite hand finish with Kircher, but Dorch matching, if not exceeding that.
Man, the Huskies on a nice little run here to make this game interesting with under half of this fourth quarter remaining.
This is, we talk about 2 teams that look a whole lot different than they did in years past, but OPRF and York giving us the ball game we all expect. Great backdoor cut there from Hesh.
You got to assume that's a play that was called off.
It's just, that's as open as a player can get. Now Mullen's slowing things down. We've seen a lot from him tonight. The right-hand floater over
man, I
Hesh
mean,
is
they
strong.
are continuing to answer right away, but I mean, Dunn, great draw up there. I mean, somehow OPRF finds a way to have no one in the middle on the hottest player on the court, Nick Hesh. That's a recipe for disaster.
His pocket was Marshall, but man, you got to look at Hesh there. He's using that opposite hand clearly to, just get Dorch off of him. I mean, I saw he did that twice. I mean, he can make that call from up here. So this is where it gets interesting. Hesh has 4 fouls. Just X out that time there on your graphic right down the middle, but I mean, you talked about what the Dukes had to do to close it out. They're not really living up to the expectation that you set there, AJ.
Oh, not at all. Coming in this fourth quarter, really had to repeat what they were doing before. Now all of a sudden these Dukes are the team playing nervous. But is it too little, too late for the Huskies? It doesn't look like it.
I tell you what, he's making up for the departure of Isaiah Barnes.
Wow, Mullins now 19 points. I mean, he's as good as they come out here.
And he's making those look easy. And he's not playing against weak competition. He's going up against the guy who you mentioned has height, and Nick Hesh, and as I said, making it look. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just really interesting because this is such a strong team on the York side of the ball. And
that's just an amazing feed from
That's
Hesh.
a great look. I mean, you know what, Nick Hesh, just go ahead and shut me up. Great read there and great look to Jeffrey Grace. And
nearly gets a steal on the defensive end.
That was close.
Oh, that's wide open.
A great take there.
Look at how hype Hesh is right now. He is getting everyone into it, and the entire York bench is up. Look at him. He's hyping him up.
I mean, look at that. There's no students here. To give you an idea, we're looking at about, I'd say maybe 20 parents.
And you could probably hear it.
And then you just have us.
Yeah.
He's hyping up
the few people
here. The few people in this gym.
And I mean, he's making them loud. I mean, that was very risky. In high school, a foul out is 5 fouls. 1 away from it, opts to try to draw a charge, and it works to perfection. Dukes once again up by 6 with the ball. I mean, that was a game changer from Nick Hesh on the defensive end.
And seriously, to stop a momentum, kind of shift just like that, another blocking foul called. And guess what? Guess what, AJ? We will head to the line. Luke Malaga. But it does get interesting because that's a junior making nothing else but a veteran move. I mean, that is a really risky take, but executing it in such strong fashion, he was pretty confident. You know, I think his eyes lit up when he saw Mullins coming at him. That's just nothing but confidence.
And, you know, Hesh never afraid to put the body on the line like that. You see him go for charges like that all the time. He plays physical, and it certainly has worked to his favor there. Down by 6. Huskies need something here.
So Dortch from the near side, 3 ball. Off the mark, no good. Rebound, oh, that's just too easy. Ends up in the hands of Sam Lewis.
And Hesh fouls out.
Bucket, and that will send Nick Hesh out of the ball game. 51-47.
It almost seemed like for a second there, Hesh wasn't aware of the fact that was his 5th foul. He went to stand in the lane, grabbed his head. That's upsetting. I mean, that was game-changing. You force them to take a contested 3. You do everything right, but you let them get a board off the offensive glass. That cannot happen.
And that's a notable departure. So now we have Tyron Casey, the junior in the ball game, and Sam Lewis, the sophomore for the Huskies at the line.
It's a 1-possession lead for the Dukes. I mean, all of a sudden, it went from the Dukes being in control to the Dukes grasping for air. Hesh, an amazing draw for charge, but then gets a careless foul on the other end. I mean, they forced the perfect shot. They forced a shot in Rhodey's face. He had his hand up, really drew up the perfect defense, but they let them get the offensive rebound. I mean, you just can't let that happen.
And so real quickly, we'll look as short-term as the word short-term can get. If you're the Dukes, what do you have to do this possession?
1:21 to go. Your ball up by 3. No rush. You are with the lead with no shot clock. Slow it down. The Dukes have been getting sloppy. We've seen way too many turnovers here in this 4th quarter. Slow down the pace of the game. Get a shot that you like. Continue to work it to Rhodey. Rhodey's done a great job. He's been kind of the meat and potatoes of this offense. He has the offense runs through Rhodey tonight. Not something that happens often, but it happens tonight. Get it to Rhodey, slow it down. I mean, it'll be interesting without the height from Hesh. I mean, Tyron, an interesting substitution there.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I love about putting Tyron Casey in the game, is now you give this guy a platform to prove himself. I mean, this is the kind of points of a ball game where, you know, he could see much more than just a win as a result of his play. You're asking a lot of a junior, and look at that. You know what? We'll make the most of it, but unable to hit that foul. I mean, nothing called there. I mean, Rhodey was taken out of midair, but real quickly, just to get back to Casey, you're giving a player a time and place to prove himself. Like I said, leading to much more than just a win. You know, Casey could be seeing more minutes to be trusted at a point like this. Luke Malaga at the line.
I mean, that was Dunn making a move that you'd see Dorian do, letting the underclassmen play here. I mean, you'd almost assume he'd put in height. Opts to continue to play with his junior, and if this doesn't go, the Huskies are going to have the ball with a shot to tie.
And it gets interesting because we talked, and that's
a huge make from Luke Malaga.
You can a sigh of relief. So we're coming up on a minute to go. Mullins has been a blocking foul on Kircher.
And Kircher not happy with it. And I mean, Lex Harrison, he's a spark plug, not playing, of course, but I mean, he is up on the bench. And I mean, with no fans, the bench makes a much bigger impact than I was even aware of. You have to be here to realize it, but the bench is generating a lot of noise. And Lex is letting the free throw shooter hear it.
Mullins.
Oh, that's got to go.
Now you got to get that rebound. Kircher does. Taken away by Dortch. Looking around the take.
Oh my goodness.
Good. Demetrius Dortch with the right hand finish. Things are getting interesting. I mean, you're just talking about at that point, when you see play like that, you're just talking about guys out hustling the others.
I mean, once again, the Dukes get lazy on the defensive glass. You do everything right. You execute the defense. You force the bad shot. The ball's in your hands and you don't grab it.
Dortch at the line, executes the and one
goodness.
Bucket.
A minute to go.
52-51, 1 minute remaining.
And he steps out of bounds.
Kircher, and
what is happening to this Dukes team?
Ending up with the ball will be OPRF, and a chance. I never thought, you know, at that point when they were down 12, you know, you never thought that you would see a moment again where OPRF would be down 1 and would have the chance to take the lead. Patrick Castro checks into the ball game.
You hate to say this as a Duke fan, but it almost seems like OPRF just wants it more.
Wide open look to Marshall. No
my
good. Rebound
goodness.
by Rhodey. And you know what? Who would have thought a rebound could be the play of the game? Well, wait.
Very smart timeout from
taken
Dunn.
by Dunn.
Wow, I mean, that was about as open as a look you'll get with a chance to go up. In the air, I mean, not an easy finish by any means, but wow, I mean, if you told me at the start of this quarter OPRF would have a shot for the lead with under a minute to go, I would think what went wrong, and it seems like everything's went wrong for the Dukes. Hesh fouls out, everything's looking sloppy. They can't, all of a sudden, this OPRF press, excuse me, there is causing problems. I mean, all of a sudden, as Gavin now has a reason to make fun of me after I was making fun of his handwriting, but it's okay. We're on even playing ground now. Duke's up by 1 with the ball. Done. Smart timeout. Only 1 remaining. Has to use it smartly. OPRF. 2 timeouts in the pocket. I mean, Gavin, this is interesting. The possession arrow stays with the Dukes if it does go to a jump ball. So that almost seems out of play at this point for the Huskies.
And you know, if you're done, you give your team a chance to catch their breath. I mean their breath. Sorry, AJ. You give the Dukes a chance to catch their breath with 48.5 seconds to go. OPRF applies the full court pressure. Malaga throwing inbounds, guarded by the sophomore Mullins to Kircher.
Seems to have worked there to have the senior throwing in the basketball.
I mean, you know, even if you send the guys in white to the line,
risky pass there.
You know, you're still gonna have. Oh man, this is.
Oh wow.
AJ,
OPRF
this is where you know it's really hard not to enjoy this just as a sports fan, because you see it going back and forth.
And there's just so much energy on both sides of the floor. I mean, this isn't a crochet match.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where you want it. It's like, you know, what bench could stand up more out of excitement that is. But it's just it's such an intriguing point in the ball game. Like I said, you can't do anything but tip your cap as Kircher hits that one. But you can't do anything but tip your cap to a team like OPRF for overcoming a 12-point deficit twice.
Oh, absolutely. Kircher, the best free throw shooter for the Duke, 77.8%
unable to hit that
from the
one.
line.
So 53-51.
That's wide open.
Three-point corner.
Air ball. No foul. It stays OPRF basketball. I mean, once again, the Dukes somehow are letting these Huskies get wide open looks. It just seems like every time they have the chance to make it, they don't. I mean, they've had the looks. The Dukes have given up the chances.
Timeout taken by Phil Gary to let his guys catch their breath. But, you know, this is just this is a turning point of sorts. You know, the smallest things matter. A rebound matters, right? A pass matters. This is where you really put, you know, the scope on just the smallest points, the fundamentals of the game. So, you know, if this game goes to, let's say, overtime. If this game goes to overtime, I mean, it just gets interesting for both sides because you lose height if you're OPRF, you lose height if you're York, that being a Nick Hesh. But who do you turn to?
Both teams really stepping into foul trouble. I mean, we could see some unorthodox players in an overtime. I mean, in a normal overtime period, you're playing the starters all the way through. With Hesh on the bench, if OPRF opts to put in a guy like John Vincent, I mean, I find it hard to believe that new coach John is still going to put in Tyron Casey. I just find that hard to believe. That is such a mismatch to the point where, I mean, we could see guys getting in the game who we have not really seen play much for this varsity team. See Joey Kenna, a potential Nick Mattis showing. I mean, there's juniors on this squad that all of a sudden have a chance, and Nick Hesh screaming louder than anybody.
It feels like you could have about 100 students in here.
Man.
Telling them to, you know what, that's interesting.
It's telling the York bench.
I don't know what the official's name is.
Yeah, she was trying to signal something.
Trying to get him to sit down as Mullins on the near side. This is crunch time. And a foul called there on Drew Kircher. And that will
not only silence the York bench, but that sends the biggest player of the game, Justin Mullins, to the line.
Justin Mullins to the line and shooting two. I mean, this is
biggest shots of Mullins' career. gets the
That's
first one.
a bold statement. Have you seen all the free throws in his career? Do you think this is the biggest one right here?
I stand by that.
You stand by that? All right. All
Yeah,
right.
you got to start off the year right. Both
you're-
teams 500. Someone's going to be falling under 500 today, barring a meteor hitting the building, and it's called a tie. So we will see someone below 500, and Mullins doesn't want it to be them.
So it's a tie ball game. Dukes have got to break this press. As I stated before, every little thing matters.
20 seconds to go. Grace gets it over the half-court line.
And now we approach 10, taken away by Dortch with ease. And
That's
that
not
will
a
give
mistake.
OPRF the lead. Mike Dunn will take a timeout, and that's something that is just crushing. 7 seconds to go on the dot. AJ, you talk about worst case scenario, the inability to possibly close out a ball game. I mean, what do you have to do? What are you doing here? You talk about, you don't go for the three. Go for a jump shot. You just want the easy bucket. Am I right in saying that?
At this point, the Dukes have to get a shot off. I mean, they should have, for sure, at the worst, be setting this game to overtime. That's just careless basketball from junior Drew Kircher. I mean, wow. How are the Huskies on top by 2 right now? I mean, complete meltdown from the Dukes. This is unreal. 7 seconds, all of a sudden, they're in the position to be needing to make a shot. Who is going to come up big? Who wants to be a hero?
And and as I said before, you can't make any judgments on a coach because of the year this is. But we never saw something like this happen last year. If you were ahead by 12 and you were the Dukes, there was about a 99% chance
and this
you were
is
winning
2
the ball
times in a
games.
row now that the Dukes have started off hot and fell
Twice
off.
in a row.
I mean, whether if they come away with this one or they don't, you expect Dunn to drop
7
something to
seconds
fix
to go.
this.
Inbound to Grace. Looking around, gives to Malaga. Malaga scopes around. He stepped out of bounds and will be headed the other way.
And I mean, that is the problem with Dunn burning those timeouts early. You would have liked to call a timeout there when he's close to that out of bounds line. He couldn't. And I mean, as long as the Huskies can successfully inbound this, we will. Oh, wow. Number 23 on the Huskies, Max Murray, showing utter disrespect to the Dukes. On the bench, just standing there staring at him, waving.
So 0.3 of a second to go in the ball game. Alex Sherman fouls Christian Marshall. And Marshall a chance now to extend the lead for OPRF.
And I mean, people would have thought I was joking when I said that I just hope the Dukes get a shot off. They don't. 2 possessions, 2 times the shot doesn't even get up.
Marshall unable to hit the first. All right, so we have a guarantee here. Actually, I'm not going to say. I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to be that guy. Marshall hits the second.
0.3 to go. This is interesting.
This is,
OPRF.
You got to watch a deep ball.
Almost
down,
has an issue there.
Kastner to Grace. Grace tries to go up, unable to hit. No foul call.
They really
Dunn
want a
doesn't
foul
like it.
call. I mean, the hand seemed to be straight up. Nonetheless, the Dukes lose by 3. Sure, you could have wanted a foul there. Even if it's called, he only goes to the line to shoot 2.
So I don't think there will be a happy individual dressed in green and white leaving the building tonight. But as we said, overcoming a strong deficit that was 12 at 2 points in the ball game was the Huskies. I mean, just what do you take away from this showing?
For me, what this fully showed is that Nick Hesh is the bloodstream of this team. He goes out of the game, they can't win. Hesh, that's both good and bad for the Dukes. They have great talent. Junior Nick Hesh, I mean, he was playing great, but I mean, if he gets in foul trouble, which he tends to do, the Dukes could be in shambles. That was disappointing.
And just to give you an idea, and AJ's right, Nick Hesh exited the ball game, and something felt different. Nothing, not in terms of organization, but Nick Hesh, having that energy from the bench is different than Nick Hesh having the energy from the floor. So for those of you that are new to this segment of the ball game, we have a 11-minute period.
For the players who really didn't play as much on the varsity.
Running clock. And so we will have Selfridge, Landon Redfern, Tyler Wildermuth, Tyler Olson, and Luke Rosenstein. 2 juniors and 3 seniors.
I'm in utter disbelief from the actual affair that we just witnessed.
So
that was a complete meltdown, not only from the players, but you hate to single it out on one guy, but twice in a row now, Dunn fails to close out a game. This is rough for the Dukes. There's no doubt at the practices, and that's a
strong
OPRF
three there
continues
from
to stay high.
Roscoe Caldwell, but I mean, it's
at
just
any team meetings, at anything, I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that this is what's gonna be talked about. The Dukes, huge lead early, huge lead in the middle, huge lead in the end.
Selfridge, near side 3 off the mark, no good.
To blow it. I mean, they have got to find a recipe for success to stay on top. I mean, that was a heartbreaker, but you can't dwell on it. Dukes under 500 now at this point. They were clearly able to beat that OPRF Huskies team. I mean, they had everything necessary to beat them. They'll get another shot against the Huskies. I mean, moving over to this JV game, Huskies on top by 3.
After the 3-point hit by Caldwell, here comes Selfridge and the Dukes. But, you know, AJ, it's just, it's an interesting situation.
It's hard to focus on this after that, I mean.
This is back-to-back games where you talk about, like you said, starting off hot, but the inability to close. I mean, it's not always about, I understand that, you know, a team, opposition, as Wildermuth hits that jumper. I understand the opposition, you know, catching fire. You can't control that. What you can't control is the patience you have on the offensive side of the ball. That's something that just, you know, is just put into question. And, you know, what's being said as a coach is as important as ever when you talk about those final 2 minutes in a game as close as it was. A rebound there by Rosenstein.
And a big difference right now, I mean, you see all of a sudden the Dukes, all those starting Dukes now on the bench because, of course, the bench players play in this JV quarter. The Dukes all of a sudden all look glum, heads down. I mean, if there's one piece of advice to the Dukes, I'm sure you'd agree with me on this, you cannot dwell on this loss.
Redfern near side.
Redfern off the mark. The Dukes cannot dwell on this loss. They have a lot of season to go and a lot of potential for it.
AJ, I'm gonna, you know, make a wild guess there and say at 24, Jack Greenwald, there's a few steps, you know, sneaked in there before that shot. But yeah, it's just, it's interesting because like I said before, you just don't see that in a Vince Dorn.
Is this Juck Grunwald?
Jesus. I mean, look. But it's just, it's one of those things that you weren't used to seeing that in a Vince Dorn team.
Not at all. And I feel like at this moment right now, you'd see Dorn talking to the players. Dunn, obviously, all people are different, taking a different approach, more calculated, trying to figure out how to fix this for next time, righting his wrongs.
I mean, you know, we'll shift away from, you know, more so, I mean, at this point, you know, we're definitely speculating as Olsen from the near side, 3 off the mark, no good, rebound by Vincent. But it's one of those things where, you know, Dunn definitely could have said one thing and the players took it a different way, or it could just be, you know, lack of player execution. But this shows you the impact, and I was thinking about this last week when we saw the Dukes give up a similar lead. It shows you the impact of the departure of, you know, Frederick Levins, as I said before, up to Olsen now.
And not only Levins, I mean, you see the departure of head coach Dorn. He was the definition of stability. He was the coach for this Dukes team for quite a while. You also see the departure of Nate Shockey, now playing college ball. I mean, he was nothing short of spectacular for this Dukes team. Very talented guard, plenty of game winners to his name, and he will always be remembered. And it's Dick Campbell Jim. You see a lot of departures. It's a fully new team. Just, they all look very down right now. They have to find a way to right the wrongs, steer the ship before it's too late. 7:05 to go now. That's nearly a steal. No. Huskies basketball, that will be an over and back. Touched by number 24, Jack Greenwald, before a Duke player. Probably the right decision there. Dukes now resetting to pass it in.
And so in the ball game now for the Dukes is Peyton Stark, Tyler Wildermuth, Luke Rosenstein, Redfern, and Selfridge. So yeah, we'll focus on these fresh 11 basketball minutes that we had. But nonetheless, the feeling in this building still kind of numb. As Redfern, great kick out to the far side. Wildermuth can't hit the 3, gets his own rebound, goes right back up, and hits the jumper.
Now here come the Huskies. Down by one.
Near side, that 3-ball on and strong. That was number 30, Clark.
There you go. Gavin's handwriting bites him in the butt.
Clark Griswold on the 3-ball. And Peyton Stark slows things down, coming back the other way.
OPRF on top by 2.
Up to Rosenstein. He looks around, scopes everything out, gives back up top to Selfridge.
And obviously this game doesn't matter towards the records, but I mean, it matters more than you'd think for the mental capacities of this team. I mean, after you come off a loss like that, the last thing you want is to let them chirp you and then just let your JV team lose as well.
Well, what's nice, what I actually love about this fifth quarter, if you will, is that you give guys a chance, right? You give guys a chance to prove themselves. Again, on both sides of the ball, sophomores, juniors, seniors. And so it can really, be taken in a positive light as long as you execute. And, you can imagine that Nick Mattis, Selfridge, Stark, and all these guys, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Is we see Joey Kenna enter the ball game as long as Damian Pacheco.
And you see a lot of ex-Sandberg Spartans on the floor right now. Both of us alums of Sandberg. And that's nearly in. Good way to bring up the pressure, but can't get it to go. Is that a foul or a jump ball call? Looks like it's a foul.
So 4.5 to go. OPRF up 6-4 in this fifth quarter.
Of course, running clock. In a varsity game, it probably would be about 10 minutes left after all the clock stoppages. However, there's only 4:24 to go here. Duke's trying to get any form of consolation prize they can from today's varsity affair.
Yeah, and AJ, we will stop talking about it, folks. But it's just when you're in the building, that's a strong 3 there from Jack Greenwald. Deep 3, but when you're in the building, it's very hard to ignore the obvious emotion that a lot of people in this gym have.
Oh yeah, it's heartbreaking. I mean, you see the guys all clearly in their feelings right now, thinking about what just happened. A little Marvin's Room action on the sideline there. A little Drake reference for you. Had to pull it out. And here come the Dukes.
So not appropriate. It's a sensitive time, AJ. As Kenna at the line. AJ, I'm kidding. It's just under 3.5 to go. Kenna will head to the line and shooting 2. Misses the first.
And
you can't hit that one, so missing both.
now here comes Kenna the other way for the Dukes.
Looking around, Redfern to Mattis. Mattis to Pacheco. Little look back to Mattis. Rolling around, and we'll be headed the other way.
.230 to go in this final period. Duke's trying to get any sort of prize they can from this home affair.
It's just, it's interesting because Caldwell with the right hand finish on the left side, 11-4 OPRF leads, but I don't think it's just us. It's as Rosenstein checks in for Pacheco, but it's just interesting because, even if had they won, whatever, the energy from the previous game, without question, transfers to this game.
Absolutely. And it's clear here. OPRF dominating, continuing the momentum. I mean, the Dukes had the momentum in that varsity game for what seemed to be 95% of the game. Of course, that final 5% is when you can't let it up. That's what matters most. Redfern off the mark on the reverse lay-in.
And back the other way, it was Caldwell, and drawing the foul. This one will come on Nick Mattis with 1:44 to go in this fifth quarter.
To the line. The clock does stop.
Sorry. Clark Griswold, my bad. It was not Caldwell. It's my fault.
The clock does stop at the free throw line.
And so we can assume that there is going to be interesting practices upcoming for the home.
I mean, it's rough to dwell on a prior game during this one, but I mean, that will be the storyline today. No one's going to leave this gym thinking about this little JV excursion. Everyone's going to be thinking about Dunn.
Deep three ball
unable
from
to coach
Wildermuth.
his team
Strong.
to that win.
With a minute and a half to go, 11-7 OPRF leads.
Nevertheless,
Caldwell outside, and a charge will be called.
now the Dukes are getting into it. I mean, this is a fully rejuvenated team. You see Dunn into it. You see the players into it. I mean, from what I've heard from the players, there's full faith in Coach Dunn. No problems on that end, and I'm sure that a lot of it did come down to execution as well. I mean, it's hard not to point fingers after a loss like that, but both teams looking to recuperate here. Dukes down by 4 with the ball, a little over a minute to go in this JV affair. Redfern.
Wildermuth drives baseline outside to Olsen. 3-ball on the way. It's off the mark, no good. Tipped up and in the hands of Caldwell.
No,
Regain
recovery by the Dukes.
Olsen.
Man, that was a weird little sequence. Under a minute, the clock does stop, not a running clock. 43.3 to go. Dukes ball down by 4.
Wildermuth gives back to Olsen. Olsen inside, great look to Redfern. Goes up.
Oh, man.
And unable to get the end one, but
nearly
nonetheless headed to the line.
Electric finish. Redfern going to the line to shoot 2. One of them would cut it to a 1-possession game. Redfern always been a bit of a sharpshooter. See if he can continue that from the line.
Just over 30 seconds to go. Redfern.
And all the way in. That's OPRF on top by 6. He got it. Landon Redfern with a deep 3.
16 seconds to go. 13-10. OPRF leads. We have a similar ball game to the final minute
and
there.
You know,
to
some people, this game may not seem like it matters much. I mean, it's clear that to both of these teams, it's important. This is an important affair. It's the Dukes trailing by 3. OPRF basketball with 16 seconds to go. We will be back right after this break. York Sports Network, your space for all York sports. Following the timeout, Huskies basketball on top by 3. Only 16 to go in this JV scrimmage. Great play by Redfern. He's upset that he couldn't hang on to that one, but that's a tough play. Great way to interfere there. Nearly a foul, but he gets it off court. That's a sloppy pass. Great recovery.
Griswold with 10.
Oh,
Looks
wow.
underneath.
I mean, that court vision is unmatched.
Great
Can't
pass.
get the layup to go. 3 seconds to go. Dukes with the chance to tie. 1 second. He got it
Throws it
off.
up.
That's a deep ball.
Off the mark, no good.
Dukes lose both affairs. Dukes lose this one by 3. It's the other one. OPRF Huskies walk-away champions in both the JV 5th quarter and the grand salami of the varsity game.
So still a lot to unpack. We'll take a deep breath here over the next few days. But folks, we want to thank you for joining us here today. On behalf of everybody here at YSN, it's been another segment of Dukes basketball on New York Sports Network. For AJ Switek, I'm Gavin Hughes. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, did you guys see my